following your account for a long time, so I'm super excited to have you on and kind of learn more about you and how you came to create this Instagram account.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it did kind of start. I mean, I'm glad to hear it. Ideally, the stuff that I post will be enjoyed by watch people and non-watch people. Uh, because I try to tell more than just a story about watches if I can. And that was kind of the whole impetus for the site. It was during COVID. It was, uh, I like to write, so it was an easy transition to just say, well, why don't I do something? And yeah, I like history, I like watches, I like writing, and so it just seemed like kind of a natural blend of the three. At the time, there weren't a lot of Instagram accounts doing that so much. This was, years ago. There are now, so I appreciate your intro. I don't know if I'm the largest and most prolific page dedicated to this anymore, but because there's some really good accounts out there that watches of espionage, Ben Lowry, submersible wrist. They were doing some really good stuff with kind of similar veins, history and watches, and I'm glad that there's room for all of us kind of in this area. But yeah, so I started a few years ago and just kind of, like I said, wanted to highlight specific models and specific instances in time where they were used, and it's not tied to any marketing of any brand. It's literally just like it's objective, which I enjoy. It's just this watch was here. If you think that's cool, like I do, that's great. And if you don't care, which some people don't, that's great too. But then, the Moonwatch doesn't get all the recognition or the Rolex subs or whatever. You say there was a Seiko, there was a Bulova, there was a Nevada Grenchen, this and that. So it's just nice to kind of highlight because really, if you look at it historically, I mean, there's so many different brands and models that have been involved in so many cool programs, military programs, government programs, just individual pursuit, all sorts of things. So, yeah, so I like to highlight it, and I, it's been years, so I'm glad people are still enjoying it for now.
Yeah, we do kind of live. We're really kind of spoiled for choice now with watch content because, like like you, there are so many excellent purveyors, I guess you could say, of historical information. That for those of us, I started collecting in 2015, sorry, and back then the watch internet was really just kind of taking off, especially on Instagram. We had the forums and stuff, but Instagram was growing very rapidly. And so now, with people like you or like Ben or like Whoa, like we're very spoiled to have such good content out there. And I guess now, since we're already just talking about it, I guess you've probably been asked this question many many times, but what's the process like for finding these images? I know probably some of it you've got your special tips and tricks, but I wonder if you could just speak to how you go about them, because for anybody who's been on your Instagram, I mean, there's hundreds of images and sometimes very niche watches, very niche sort of historical moments. So do you literally just stay up till 3 in the morning scrolling old photo archives, or do you have any other tips that you do for that?
No, yeah, I mean, it's probably closer to the former than the latter. I wish I could say there was like an amazing magic process, but a lot of it is literally just like, yeah, just like scrolling through thumbnails. I mean, knowing what archives you can look at, and I wish it was like a proprietary Wristorian process, but it's really not. It involves a lot of digging. I mean, I started from scratch like everyone else. It's not like I had a history. I don't have a history degree. I wasn't familiar with the databases. It for me, it really kind of started with a Seiko that I'm wearing now, but a Seiko 6306. Um, that has some interesting text on the dial that ended up being from an Antarctic research program. And so this is the only one that's actually known that has this exact printing on the dial. There were 2 years the program ran, and so you get some that say 1979 to 80, and some that say 78 to 79. So mine says 79 to 80. I've seen maybe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 3 or 4 examples that have the other date range. So it all started with that, and that forced me to find archives that had photos from Antarctica, which led me to a New Zealand page, New Zealand Antarctic uh, Research Programs archives, which are pretty extensive. So that allowed me to do a lot of research. So, you know, that was kind of the first one I used, and that gave me kind of like a good launching pad for just using archives. I mean, luckily you're not just combing, you're still combing through thousands of photos sometimes, which does take. I won't do it at 3 in the morning
Yeah.
because I'm just completely useless at after 8 p.m. But you know, you luckily you can at least some archives you can do date ranges, which help. You know, because I can just type in like I'm not really interested in anything newer than 1990 if I want to focus on
Mm.
this. But or in that case, my watch on the dial says 1979 to 80. So you know, you go, well, it probably didn't exist before 78. I can go up to 85 because presumably people would still maybe wear these watches for years after the program. So you know, you can do it. Some of them you're lucky you can do that and it works. Some of them have that functionality and it just doesn't. It's like it doesn't seem to actually work. You'll still get them from 2008, even though you filtered 1960 to 1980. So and then you can do keywords and stuff. So a lot of it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that, diving, scuba, helicopter, pilot. You try to find things that are going to be interesting, and then you just go from there. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just been lucky stumbling upon this, and a lot of this specific watch. The archives, I mean, they were helpful because I found photos of the program, but nothing was good enough for me to say
Yeah.
this person in this photo is wearing this exact watch. You may say they're wearing a Seiko Turtle, presumably a 6306, although it could go either way, right? And yeah, you can't
Yeah.
make out the dial text, so you just kind of go, it's possible. But then you can still say a watch that was some form of turtle, whether it's 6306 or 6309, was being worn by a scientist in the program in 1979. A lot of this watch was actually reaching out to people who were in the program, um, which is again just more sort of internet sleuthing. This particular one, a whole scientific report was written because it was a government project. And that report listed everybody who was involved in the project. From there, it's just literally, like anybody would do, Googling their names. A lot of them were academic. So professors, these people
Mm-hmm.
are geochemists, geologists. So a lot of them still teach in Australia, New Zealand, or are retired but still have an email address tied to a school. So I was able to reach out to probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 different people involved in the program. And I mean, that's best case scenario when you're doing something like this because you're getting direct information from people who were there.
Right.
Uh, doesn't, you get lucky sometimes. That doesn't work out too often, especially because we operate in the realm predominantly of vintage watches. And obviously, the people involved in these programs are now like in their 80s. Eventually we won't be able to talk to those people at all, so I was sort of lucky, but
Yeah.
that's what got me started. And then, yeah, it's literally just kind of digging through. Sometimes you just go, oh, I wonder if like Harvard University has any interesting archives. A lot of universities have really good photo archives. So, then I find a random 6105 on some scientist in a lab at Harvard, or, you just kind of, so sometimes it is literally just like combing through them.